Let me just welcome Mr. Ben Yahuda.
Yo, doctor.
Good evening.
Peace and Yah bless.
How's everyone?
Yah bless.
Great brethren. Honored to be here.
Happy to have you.
Thank you.
Dr. Cosriel, as there was a meeting last month where you spoke on the existence of Yeshua. And we were just trying to get some clarity. And now that you're with us, we could ask you directly, what is your position on the existence of a man called Yeshua during the time of Jesus, as the Christians know him? What is your official position on that? Because I don't think there were those of us who were really clear whether you substantiate the New Testament or not, or whether you just believe that there was such a person named Yeshua who was of the tribe of Yehuda back during those days. Could you help us to understand what your position is on that?
Yes, I can. As always, I give honor and praise to you and to all those who are inspired by this magnificent phenomenon that causes all things to exist. I'd like to thank my brother again, Brother Heny, for orchestrating and navigating us through this inspirational dialogue. I think it's very much needed. And I'm highly inspired and motivated by you, brethren. And just always praying that the things that I share help contribute to the awesome challenges that stand ahead of us as Black men, as Israelite men. With regard to your question, dear brother, I would never try to argue the point that Yeshua existed. There's so much that being in Israel and having access to some of the museums and some of the institutions here that deals more with the anthropological and historical dynamics of what took place in this land 2,000 years ago, it's very hard for us as scholars to validify and just absolutely state what was true and what was untrue, because we do not have access to the data. And anthropology and archaeology are guarded more than Fort Knox. You can't even get to some of these institutions and some of the books, some of the information that would really reveal to us our history that took place in this land 2,000 years ago. So we can only go by what we have available. And what I've studied, what's been available to our scholarship body here in Israel, in Jerusalem, is that if there was a Messianic personage, an Israelite, who claimed to usher in a new prophetic era for the Israelites after the the rebuilding of the Second Temple, it could not have been Jesus. Like I'm sure most of you have studied, the lingual and the language idea that there was not even a J to even pronounce the word Jesus, And then when we understand the intertestamental period, when the Greeks had access to all of this information, and they translated the Hebrew into the Greek, and then the The Greek was translated into the Latin and then into the English. So much was lost, So we can only speculate based on the information that we have at hand. And that information points us towards the idea that if there was this ideal of Messiah, he was no way near the theological Jesus Christ that has been, presented to the world. So I would say that if we follow the trajectory of the Hebrew prophets, they did look for these messianic personages to appear. And when we read the New Testament, and let me put it this way, the only reason why we're calling it the New Testament is based on just what I said, that the designers of the Tanakh, the English Bible, they organized the Old Testament and the New Testament. There never should have been an Old or a New Testament. It was only one. It should have been just one narrative, So when we look at the time, see, I don't define it as going into the New Testament. I stay in the trajectory of chronology, and that during the time of, say, maybe the last century, or say maybe the last 100 years in Israel, there seemed to appear, based on some of the historical writings of Josephus and the Dead Sea Scrolls, and there's a few other texts that leads to a certain cult, certain division, a certain fraternity of Israelite men who raised up to challenge the Romans' authority in the land, And like I shared with you brothers last week, messiahs were not the mythological images and characters that religion has showed us. Messiahs were men. These were men who were divinely inspired, and they were teachers. In fact, the word anointed, or Mashiach in Hebrew, it means one who is able to cause someone to shine. It was an anointment, and it was a metaphor that signified, or it shared how these messiahs were extraordinary, inspired scholars who were able to look back in history, assess that information in the present, and then based on that data, they could project into the future what would be the fate of the people, and so they were also revolutionaries. They understood that they could not win an absolute victory against Rome in a military conflict, but they were not naive men. They had associations with some of the most violent of the rebels that were in this land. So I guess I'm saying that if there was a Messiah, or someone who was claiming to be, someone who was acknowledged as Messiah by Israelites during the turn of during the last century, or the last 100 years, it would have to have been an African, and he did not come to die. He was not the savior. I was sharing the last time that the ideal of a God that saves, or messiahs that save, that idea has been misconstrued and redefined by the Greek historians and the Greek scholars who had control over this data for so many years. There were only, messiahs were more so redeemers. A redeemer can be very different than a savior. In fact, if you look up the English word savior or salvation, there is no Hebraic root to the word. The word salvation has its roots in Greek mythology. That's in mythology, period. and it's founded on the Greek goddess Soteria and the Greek god Soter, who many scholars believe was Zeus. And these were gods that protected and gods that rescued, you know. And the Hebraic idea, messiahs were great teachers. In fact, the name Yeshua, you know, it means to hear. It comes from the root word lishmor, which means to hear and to respond. And so what the Israelites were looking for, they were not looking for miraculous messiahs to deliver them. They were looking for extraordinary scholars and teachers to teach them. And then they would have to apply the teachings. They would have to respond to the teachings. And so, yeah, so I hope that answers your question.
Peace and y'all best, Brother Kadriel. I have a question for you.
Please.
What validity, if any, do you give the New Testament?
I don't give the New Testament really any validity because it was written in Greek.
Good.
It was written by Greek scholars. It was written by Israelites, Jews. Some of them were actually Jewish scholars who helped participate because they shared a lot of the historical data that the Greeks wanted access to. And so as they created the what was called the New Testament, it was originally altered in Greek. And so we know that the Hellenistic culture was totally opposed to the holistic and the truth-centered culture, the truth literate culture of the Israelites. So don't really give it any validity, but as a scholar, I will read sometimes. I may look for things in the New Testament, but most of the things that I found in the New Testament that had any validity, there's an Old Testament reference to it.
Can I ask, sorry to cut in, Lee, if you just one little question. Who do you think the Greeks were? You know, from a biblical perspective.
When you say who they were, what do you mean? I mean, and what?
Well,
what idea?
What nation were the Greeks?
What nation? I'm not clear.
We're the nation of Israel. Yeah, they were the nation of the Moabites, the nation of the Canaanites. What nation were the Greeks?
Well, did they come from the Macedonian people? I'm not actually clear on the question. What nation?
Well, you're right.
I think they developed from tribes. They developed from different tribes, and then they formed. They developed into the Greek empire. But these were different tribes of European people.
Well, would you be surprised to know, and would it color your view of this if you knew that if you look at the book of the rest of Esther and also the book of Jasher, it tells you that the Greeks were the Edomites. Okay, fine. Right, I wouldn't argue that. So knowing that the Greeks and then later the Romans were Edomites, okay, would it not color your view of this the Greek, you know, influence on this?
When you say color my view, you mean support the idea that the Greeks were anti. The Greeks had a totally different projection and vision for the world, as if you matched it up against the Israelite vision.
No, more along the lines of, but we know the character of Esau: deception, right, and warfare, control, etc., etc.
Okay, sure.
And as well as hatred, utter hatred for Jacob. Yeah. Okay, I can agree. I wouldn't argue that. That's right. So absolutely. So if you read the book of Maccabees, you find out that the Greeks, right, or Edomites, they attacked Israel, and the first thing they tried to do was force Israel to worship Zeus and eat pork
True.
to break the Most
Correct.
High's right. So, because they were trying to force the Israelites to turn against the Most High, well, that started a rebellion on the side of the Most High, and they got driven out because the Most High was back on the side of the Israelites. Okay.
Okay.
Right. So knowing now that the Edomites came back as Romans, do you think,
Okay.
you know, because they were cunning hunters, that's what the Edomites are, cunning hunters who study their prey, yeah. Do you think they would have learned from their mistakes when they were the Greeks?
The Edomites you're referencing would have learned.
Yes. So they tried a
mean,
method because
Okay.
they'd seen what happened to Israel when they went against the Most High on the land Sabbath, and the Babylonians took them into captivity. Right. So when they came in as the Greeks, they tried to forcibly make the Israelites turn against the Most High. Right. Didn't work. So as the Romans, now they had a different plan. And this plan was to create one of their god men. And if you look through Roman history, yeah, all their deities were god men. Yeah. They created a god man. And said to the Israelites, well, this is your Most High, come down as a man, right? You've got to worship him, okay? Because it's the same tactic, get the Israelites to turn against the Most High. And the best way to do it is to get them to sin without knowing they're sinning.
Okay, makes sense.
The people that you were saying about that were having a kind of rebellion, they were called the Ebionites. Okay, they were going. They also called themselves the poor ones. They would give away everything and go around preaching, you know, a return to the Ten Commandments, because everybody was in idolatry and doing all the wicked stuff. Yeah, this was in the first century AD. Yeah, these Ebionites. And they were the ones who were persecuted by the Romans, the Edomites. At the same time, yeah, they were pushing this JC character and this New Testament. Yeah, it's a plan. The whole thing's been a plan. And when you realize that the Edomites were behind it, and their driving force is the hatred of Jacob. Yeah,
I get it. I mean, Brother Dave, I have no argument with that. I mean, yeah, it just makes sense.
Yeah,
again,
well, that's why I'm saying you don't need archaeological, evidence. What you need is here, is knowing. When you know the character of your enemy, and you know who your enemy is, then you know how the book is there to tell us. Because there's nothing new under the sun. They're not going to come at us with anything new. You can look in that book and say, this is what they're doing now, and this is how we deal with it righteously. That's the point of the book, or one of the points of the book.
Okay, fine.
That's why I'm saying that they created this JC character, right? And now that we are starting to wake up, and even before we woke up to who we were, our people were leaving the church in droves. So what did they have to do? They tried to drag us back by painting JC up, nice and brown, and giving him a Hebrew sounding name, or many Hebrew sounding names, to kind of drag us back into a Hebrew flavored version of Christianity. And then if you follow any of the camps, yeah, that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to get us back into Hebrew version of Christianity. So any sort of reverence of JC, whether you call him Yeshua or Yahushai or Yahusha or whatever, yeah, is still the same idol worship, just a different alias.
Okay.
Right. Sorry to stun everybody into silence.
No, I tell you, Dr. Cosriel, I was once part well, I call it Dimona. I visited Dimona back in 2009. I'm not sure if we ever met personally, but I was in Atlanta with the Soul Vegetarian restaurant. In fact, I was the manager of the Soul Vegetarian restaurant for about a year or so. And I know you've been to Atlanta, right?
I was there a few months ago. Yeah.
A few months ago. And I don't know if you've been there when I was there. I want to say I remember you. I know
I kind of remember you, bro.
You know brother Aniam, right?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
if I'm not mistaken, he took your name. Well, I came in just a little bit before Aniam came in. And we went through absorption together, but I had a different name. My name is Benaiah, but then I was given the name Haviel. Haviel Ben Nasik El Kana, because El Kana I accepted as my Abba.
Okay.
And I know you knew what do you call it? Nasik El Kana, yeah, Nasik El Kana. He was a real good dude. But you know, and I had mentioned to everyone here on the platform, as it pertains to you know, the folks there, y'all don't really buy into the New Testament. You know, and that is true. Right. Just based on what you're saying, you know, you don't adhere to the New Testament. You don't, you know, I don't know of anyone that's part of your movement, we'll call it that, as being adherents to the New Testament.
Right.
So by you saying what you said, you pretty much confirmed that, you know, you don't give it any validity. And I don't think there's anybody there that give it validity. I remember being when I was working in the restaurant, me and a couple of brothers were talking bad about the New Testament. You know, you don't just subscribe to it like that. So, but I wasn't there the last time everyone met. Myself and Brother Malachi and Brother Dave, who just spoke, we weren't there. And we did see the video where you were speaking of Yeshua, you know, in the context, but it was somewhat, I admit, it was somewhat confusing because they couldn't understand your position, whether it was yay or nay. And I mentioned to them, I said, well, from what I remember, it's nay. You know, they don't really buy into it, but I know that a lot of people, when they come into, I know when they came into Atlanta, when they came to the restaurant, into the center, the people in you know, with the kingdom would as y'all call it, the kingdom would they'd come in, they'd have a New Testament idea. So you know, utilizing the New Testament was something that y'all familiar with, but then they would be weaned off of it, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, that from what I remember from that the time that I spent with Nasik Ram and the people in Atlanta. You know?
Yeah. You pretty much got it right. You know, again, the Bible period, even the Old Testament, what we call the Old Testament, the Tanakh, the Torah. I think Brother Dave said something that I think we all need to take into account. You know, it's even the Old Testament has gray areas in it. We just can't read it and just believe that what we're reading is 100% authentic. A lot of the knowledge will come through us. When I say us, those brethren who are passionate and serious about unearthing the hidden truths of our people, the history. A lot of it will come through revelation. You know, it'll come by way of spiritual and intellectual revelation based on where our hearts are and our desires to know and understand. And we'll have to navigate ourselves based on our experience, based on our individual studies. We'll have to figure a lot of this out ourselves. And I'm saying this to say that what we've been doing here at Jerusalem is our study has not only been into the Greek influence in the on the Torah, but theology, period, religion, period. Because what we do know is our fathers were not religious men. Our ancestors, our Hebraic ancestors, these were not religious men. These were truth-centered men. The difference being that religion is not bound by, it's not accountable to truth. Religion can just be based on belief. Whatever you choose to believe in, whatever your passions, your visions are, religion can, it won't be wrong. It's relative. It's relative to what you believe. And so we've had to go back, and we had to restudy even the Torah. You know, have you ever wondered why, when the revelation came to Moses, when he asked, what name should I present to the Israelites to represent you? He was speaking in terms of the Creator. And the revelation came, Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. You know, that's not a name per se. That term has been developed into a name, but the revelation came to Moses as it appears in the Torah. The revelation came not just who I am, but what it is. Because when you take the name Yahuwah that comes from the Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, it translates to all things. All things, everything that was, everything that is, and everything that shall ever be. So the Creator, Yor, is not just a spirit. It's spirit and matter. It's the heaven and the earth. And you can never understand the fullness of the concept of the Creator without both sciences. And one of the most victorious moments in Euro-Gentile history is when they proliferated an ideal that the spiritual world was separate from the material world. And you may be familiar with dualism, Descartes dualism, Newton dualism, and how they created these two sciences of religion and matter, the spiritual world and the physical world, as if they were opposed to one another. But the creation, Yor, is holistic. It's one interdependent, one interactive, one holistic system, and one can't exist without the other. And so as we continue to study not just the Torah, but other books that defines life, biology, physics. Because when you read the Genesis, the first 3 chapters, as a matter of fact, the first verse, it says, in the beginning, Yah created heaven and earth, you know, and then the second verse, and the spirit of Yah movement. That's physics, because all life is moving. You know, everything that's living is in motion. Everything, you know, as human beings, our hearts are beating, our blood is flowing. When you look at the the geological sphere, the terrestrial sphere, the soil. Everything in the soil is alive. It's moving. When you look in the aquasphere, water is living. Even rocks, the minerals of the earth, everything is living, everything is alive. And everything in this holistic system is doing two things. It's creating energy and it's consuming energy. And that's what keeps the productive and the regenerating life in the universe, you know. And so we have to begin to add this science into our equation of correct worship, you know. So that means that it gives us a more practical and a more pragmatic challenge of being representatives of the Creator, you know. And this is why, you know, it was so important for us to make our way back to the land, to feel the land again, to begin to build on the land again. It's important for us to create our own institutions again, you know, institutions of health, our institutions of economics. You know, what Demona represents is a microcosm of the rebuilding of the Israelite nation, you know. And so we know that spirituality, there has to be a form of sociology that's a direct replica. It's a direct, it mirrors the spirituality must be mirrored in a social reality, you know. And so it's just an entirely different challenge of worship when we leave the theological sciences and move more into a holistic idea of Yah, because that's what the name means. That's what the idea means. I share, or Ehyeh, I share Ehyeh. That's how the vision came to Moses. It didn't come in any other way. And so when you define that in the Hebrew language, the best idea we can gain from that is everything that was, everything that is, and everything that shall ever be. There really is, a name does not really encompass the magnitude of this ideal of Yah. It's, you know.
I don't know about anybody else, but I followed you when you were speaking just now, and I understand. I can totally understand what you're saying, because Yah is all encompassing. You know, he is eternal. He's all encompassing. Nothing would exist without him. And really, to say that this language is English and what have you, it doesn't do. He can't be described in a word. You know what I'm saying? I understand where you're coming from, but it has to be a revelation where your heart is. You know, whether you could really grasp the concept. But I mean, that's understood. So I think it's safe to say that your position, as you just explained it, is not the New Testament. We can pretty much do without it. Is that's my consensus anyway. Brother Malachi?
Okay. Well, the main thing that I wanted to hear, and that's why I asked my question, is to be clear and concise. That way that our people that will hear this, that is actually moving away from this idol worship and turning back onto the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, that they may be clear that this Yeshua, JC, whatever you want to call him, it's a Roman idol, it's a Roman concoction, and that our people are not to walk after it. And they are to take a hold of the instruction that we were given at the first. I wanted that to be clear and concise. That way there will be no confusion on that matter particularly. And that's been cleared up. And if we're dealing with that New Testament, if the New Testament, as we can agree, it is not Holy Scripture, it is not the instruction that we were given at the first, so therefore that immediately cancels out anything pertaining to JC and someone dying for your sins or anything of that sort. So we're back on the right track.
Mhm.
Absolutely. 100% in agreement, my brother. And that's going to be probably the greatest challenge that we'll have as we try to bring, volumes of what we would like to consider spiritual people into this idea is, Christianity. And not just Christianity, but again, theology, the theological religions, the three monotheistic religions, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, they're fundamentally the same, because they're the Greeks, when you search back historically, the Greeks inherited the same gods of the Babylonians. The Babylonians inherited the same gods of the Egyptians. It's just been a trajectory of the same gods.
Yeah.
And so, and this is not to say that Muhammad was flawed. The studies that I've done with Muhammad, he started as, you can liken him as to one of the Hebrew prophets, but it's after his passing and after the religious institutions and those who had, other objectives, they sort of overran and inculcated this whole region with the same religious theological expectations of God. The same was with Judaism and Christianity, so it's religion, it's theology. That stands as the major obstacle that we'll be faced with in terms of trying to bring our people closer to some enlightenment of the Creator.
As far as the enlightenment of the Creator and trying to bring our people closer, I think that's going to be easier done as the hardships begin to hit them, because most of our people have been calling upon these deities of these many different religions for quite some time. And I think the only way that they're going to come away from it, number one, it certainly takes us standing up in our law and teaching. That's one part of it. But the other part of it is, as the Most High brings his judgment upon the people and they begin to call on their deities and he is unable to save them, then they will be forced to seek answers. And the Most High's laws make sense. And so therefore, those who seek to avoid the affliction that's upon them, they may be forced to consider their ways and their doings and make it good. And thus, they may be much more receptive to hearing about adhering to the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. So I'm thinking that more of them will seek after the Most High as they begin to be under duress and hardship, and they realize that which they have been serving has not benefited them any.
Great point.
It's good. But I feel like the people who are following the Islam, they believe that they're following the right path. They even say, like, when they stop you in the street and they say, "Oh, I'm an Israelite." No, they always make up a story that when Moses was getting the commandments or the word, that one of he had a right hand man what was belonged to was it what's it like it belonged to what he gave. What am I trying to say now? He gave, like Islam. He brought all the he had a right hand man. What I've heard from from people who follow Islam, besides their man word, he brought it to them. So it was the Israelites at the beginning. Now everybody follow Islam. This is how they preach it. I don't know if any of you something similar like that.
Well, I can say this. I'll show it to you. I have a book here. Blow the dust off it because it's collected dust. That's how much I use it. what I have here is a copy of the Quran. This is the Quran. Can y'all see that there?
No, it's blurry, but we have an idea.
Well, I'm just showing it for the crowd, so anybody that can make it out. This is the Quran. It's kind of blurry, but this, and I have done a comparison with the Quran and the Book of Remembrance, and they don't agree. The Quran gives stories, it explains things that is contradictory to the Book of Remembrance. And my position is, if you want to know the truth, you have to hold it up to the light, and the light is Yah's word, his law, through the Torah, you know, and the prophets. And if it doesn't stand up, if it doesn't agree, then there's something wrong with that book. And I can tell you, I wrote down and made a list of things that the Quran says that's in opposition to what the Book of Remembrance says. It's pretty extensive. I haven't finished it because I figure if you just find, I have quite a few, but that's enough. You know, how much do you have to contradict to see that you're not telling the truth? If you know, I know Muslims will tell you, you know, speaking about Islam, I know there are Muslims who tell you that they believe in all the prophets, you know, because you can't be a Muslim unless you believe in all the prophets, you know,
including JC.
Yeah, that's true. And they say including JC. But I can tell you that that Quran is not going to get you anywhere. It won't bring you close to Yah at all, because it's just contradictory to it. You know, for example, Muslims don't eat pork. And you say, well, that's a good thing. You know, the Book of Remembrance, you know, we're not supposed to eat pork. But there's, let me see, I got it written down here. There's what it says about pork idea, just in case someone comes to you and, okay, check this out. In the Quran, it's called surahs. In Surah 16 and verse 115, it speaks about forbidden food. And it said you can't eat dead meat. You know, that means an animal who died in and of itself. You can't eat dead meat and the blood. You can't, which the scriptures say you can't eat blood. Flesh of swine. And now check this out. And that on which any other name hath been invoked besides that of Allah. So in other words, if you prayed over your food and invoked any other name besides Allah, well, you're not supposed to eat it. But then it says, but if one is forced by necessity, without willful disobedience, nor transgressing due limits, for Allah is all forgiving and merciful. What are they saying? It's saying that, well, you're not supposed to eat it, but if you put in a tight bind and you're on the brink of starvation, well, you could eat it because, you know, you kind of being forced to eat it, but don't worry about it because Allah will forgive you. Does the scripture say that? Does the Torah say that? It says stay away from it, don't eat it. And the truth is, if you trust in Yah, you won't be put in a situation that will cause you to eat it. You always have a choice. So that shows that that book, to me, it was clear to me that that is not in accordance with the scriptures. Can y'all understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Any comments? I'm open for comments.
That's understood. I have a question that I'd like to present to you all. You know, the men of Israel in the many nations in which we dwell, we have not had a platform by which we've ever stood upon in strength, whether it be alone or together. And what I mean by that is anyone that's ever stood up to try to be a defender of our people, he has been killed or exiled or ostracized, etc. My question is this: as we continue to embark on this journey of teaching our people and teaching the nations to return back onto the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, and we are strengthened by the Most High by which to do so, and we begin to stand firm in our lot and teach that which we were not taught by our enemies, how hard do you think, and how much emphasis and effort will be placed against us by our enemies as far as them trying to come against us because we are teaching that which they do not agree with, that which they have not taught us, and that which, if we continue to pursue it and to teach this to our people and the masses, can ultimately bring about their destruction and the end of their reign. How much of a threat do you think our enemies perceive us to be at this present time? Did you hear that, Brother Dave?
Okay, well.
Yeah, but I'm going to let somebody else talk because I talk too much.
I was being quiet to let somebody else talk too, but I have my thoughts on that. But if anybody else wants to say anything.
Yeah, like I said, how much of a threat are we once they see this beginning to take shape and form? We have not taught these people this. They are teaching something that we have not taught them. They're returning to righteousness. They're pointing out our wickedness. They're causing their people and our people to turn away from these religious institutions that we have formed. And Christianity is a form of government, whether we like it or not. So these people are causing the masses to turn away from us. And thus we may lose our grip on them and on society as a whole, and our form of government is crumbling. How much of a threat does our enemies perceive us to be as we continue to strengthen in the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, precepts, and become unwavering in doing so? In other words, for the first time, we will be able to stand up, speak clearly, and be undeterred.
Okay, well, I'll take the ball and run with it. I think obviously we're going to be a threat to them. You know, there's an old saying I heard years ago: a drowning man will grab onto a straw. You know, which when you're desperate enough, you try anything, you throw anything at the wall and hope it sticks. And I think our enemies, once they see and it's clear to them, I think it's already clear to a lot of them now, but there's still some that's delusional who think that, you know, this society can be redeemed or saved. You know what I'm saying? We would have healed Babylon, so to speak, you know, but she cannot be healed. There are those who are trying to heal this place, but once it becomes obvious that it is falling, I think a lot of our people will be looking for answers. And then, you know, we have to be there with the truth to guide them into the truth, to give them hope and to give them a firm foundation on which to stand, you know, and that is the laws of Yah. But make no question, you know, there's no question about it. They're desperate. Our enemies will do anything to keep their society going. You know, I'll use Dr. Kazriel's term, the Euro Gentiles. You know, they have shown themselves to be our enemies. You know, as a nation, they're against us. Not all of them, but there are a lot of them in power that are against us, and they'll do anything to hold on to power. You know, I think part of that has been demonstrated just this past Shishi Friday with this Kyle. I don't know if all y'all were following with this Kyle Rittenhouse trial, you know, where he was found not guilty on all counts. You know, they're trying anything to keep their way of life as they have created it alive. Well, we have to come out of that society, and we have to do something different. That's our charge. We as Israelites were chosen by Yah to be his representatives here on earth. But the covenant, as you all know, was, hey, you keep my laws, I'll look out for you. I'll make sure you're riding in the high places and all nations will come to you. But if you don't, then you're going to be the tail and all nations will trample over you, to paraphrase. Well, let's be honest, when we're coming up, they're coming down, just like Dave spoke about earlier. As we rise up and grab onto these laws, the curses will be placed on them. And of course, they're going to fight like all hell to keep those curses from falling upon them. So we're in for a fight. These people aren't going to just go away. They built their society on blood, on murder, and theft. And they'll do everything they can to preserve it. So they'll try to invalidate the truth as we speak the truth. They're going to try to invalidate it by promoting, whether it be Islam, Judaism, or Christianity. The main three monotheistic religions, they say, well, Christianity is actually more than a monotheist. It's more than one God for the Christians, but they're going to do everything they can to preserve their state and their existence. There's no question about that. So we're in for a fight. They're not going to go down quietly. They're going to go out swinging. And I yield my time to anyone else.
Delvin, what about you? You haven't said nothing today. What's going on?
Kwame too. Kwame hasn't said anything.
No, it's interesting to listen because obviously the last talk we had with the doctor, the good doctor there, it was more, a bit more diverse. This is more on point. So there's not much to say really about this subject matter from what I've heard today in comparison to what I heard last time. Last time I was more confused. There seems to be a slight difference of a subject now, and it gives me more clarity now, whereas before I wasn't so clear. So there's nothing much for me to say really, so it's all good. Okay. It's all good.
Okay, well then what I'll say then from my point of view is, yes, there is as we rise, there is going to be more, it's going to be more intense, it's going to get more intense, that's without doubt. We see that now with all around Europe and mandating this, mandating that. We can see what's going on, and as we know, the demographic when it comes to people who are being vaccinated and fully vaccinated and boosters, etc., the most beings who are not doing it are Israelites. And so they're narrowing that gap. So at the moment we've got in Austria, they've just turned around and said that the whole nation must be vaccinated by, I believe, February 2022. And Germany are following suit. And this seems to be moving around Europe, and that's a really desperate measures. They can't do that directly in the United Kingdom. They're afraid to do that as a way of control, because they know they'll have the fight back will be incredible, because during you wouldn't have seen this in America and in other parts of the world, but there were some incredible demonstrations which were going on here, which the mainstream media didn't pick up on. So they know what we're about over here when it comes to that. So yes, I can see it intensifying. I can see things becoming more desperate as distractions, etc. But I know we've just got to stay firm.
Dr. Yisrrael, what is the vaccination situation like in not only Israel, but in Dimona and the Bedouin community?
Well, just like my brother said, we refused to take it. We're not going to take it. Israel, they're trying to, well, let's step back a little bit. I finally understood why Bill Gates was involved with the vaccination progress. Bill Gates is actually his his interest of control is based on data, you know, moving data, controlling data. Because when you control data, you're defining the narrative. You know, you're making decisions for people who are not even aware that you're making the decision for them, you know. And one of the things that the vaccination has the capacity to do is actually alter the DNA of people. They could actually plant certain in the body that will allow them, just like you send a message on your telephone, you can send a message into someone's brain. You know, all of this is what they've been doing, you know, in this whole techno-synthetic, you know, vision they have. And so Israel supports that. Israel is trying to become the #1 manufacturer, producer, and designer of high-tech mechanisms and high-tech industry in general. You know, they're reconfiguring the whole Negev region to build massive factories. You know, that's one of the reasons why when they shut down the Palestinians and moved them back into Gaza and the West Bank, they were actually making a shift of what their the main product that this country would produce. Prior to when the Palestinians were populated in Israel, they were manufacturers, they were agriculturists. They fed Europe. Israel fed practically all of the European countries. And once they decided to make this transition into high tech, they developed a strategy to push the Palestinians out. And then they brought in European Jews, and mainly from Eastern Europe, who are highly, highly skilled in technology. So they've been building on that genre ever since. And so Israel is actually collaborating with the conspirators who are at the very top of this this whole vaccination scheme. You know, Israel is a supporter of it. And when I say Israel, I'm not talking about the everyday people that we see walking in the streets. You know, and even the Israelis who are in the government system. And one of the talks that we'll have, I'd love to give you brothers some real good insight on who runs this country and what this country is being designed to do. But but to the point we're discussing, and that is, so what Israel is doing, they're trying to take the lead. Well, they're not really taking the lead. I think Australia has basically enforced the vaccination process more than any other country. But Israel also wants to develop a system where if you do not take the vaccination, you will be placed in another category to be discriminated against in your movement, in your entertainment, your everyday life will be affected if you don't take the vaccination. Most of the Israeli public are refusing to take the vaccination. You know, it's certain dynamics of the government that's pushing it, but there's a lot of opposition here for the vaccination. And so it's interesting to see how this thing is going to develop worldwide, you know, and I'm sure everyone is watching and studying it. And I'd like to make a point too on the, if that answers your question, that's good, Brother David.
Yeah, it's
right.
cool.
Okay. In terms of the adversary and their fear of us, you know, I had the opportunity when last time I was in Ghana, I watched what the Chinese
You're breaking up.
doing, you know,
Brother
Pardon
Cosrell,
me?
can you repeat your last? You've been broken up for a second.
oh, I'm sorry. I was saying I had the opportunity to go to Ghana in last year. No, it was year before last, 2019. I was able to go to the year of return that the Ghanaian government sponsored. But I took the time to look at the Chinese people in Ghana. And as you all know, Chinese people are phenomenal in terms of setting up their own cities, you know, in Chicago, you know, their Chinatowns. And even in the African-American neighborhoods, even the African British neighborhoods, you see the Chinese restaurants, you see the Chinese nail salons, you see the Chinese selling hair and hair products. But in Africa, they're doing different. They're building systems. They're building railroad systems. They're not just bringing trains in. They're laying the railroad track system. They're building aviation systems, airports. They're building highway systems. They're building ports to control the maritime, the shipping dynamics. But the thing that interests me the most is that when you look at the signs, you know, every time you see a big construction operation, those that are doing the construction work will have their construction company mounted on the building or whatever they're constructing. And each time the sign would read the Chinese people, the Republic of China. The Chinese people are not in Africa as individuals. They're not in there as individual capitalistic companies, institutions. They're in there as the Chinese people. And what they have been remarkable at doing throughout history, and that's moving at a pace that all and most of the Chinese people are involved. When they fear us, it will be when we're able to institutionalize, to organize, to place our people in the element of one force, you know, one institution, one voice, one vision, you know. Then they'll fear us. Not only were they us, and they were afraid of you, they don't fight strong. You know, as a little boy, I didn't like to fight, but I remember once I got into a fight, and I was so correct for fighting, and this guy was actually wrong for fighting me, but I noticed he didn't have any strength in him because of the manner in which I was really fighting for the right cause, and it was the strength that I fought with. You know, when we fight as one people, they won't have any strength. We'll take the fight out of them. And so I'm saying that to say, when they see us begin to develop our own economic system, when we develop our educational institutions, when we're able to develop our own political system to govern ourselves with our own value system, you know, that's when they'll fear us. We will not be able to do it in the West. It won't happen. Our greatest point, our greatest stance will not happen in the West. Our brothers in the West will be a part of it. They'll be a part of it. But we have to be anchored and institutionalized outside of America. You know, whether it's in some part of Africa where, and I would say Africa because Africa is the only place that I've seen in my travels that still has an indigenous population who have not been totally polluted with Western religions and Western ideology, you know. And so once we're able to get out of what we call the lands of the captivity and institutionalize to where we can live by our own values, then they fear us. And in that fear, we would take the fight out of them. They won't be able to repel anything, any of our ambitions, any of our objectives. You know, we can, you know, it was only, I'll say this and I'll be quiet. When you study communism, it started basically with about 3 men. And if I remember correctly, they started in the basement of a house. And within 40 years, communism was able to dominate and to govern almost a third of the world. So I'm saying that to say, not to give communism any value, but the fact that it didn't take a lot of people. You know, it was the focus on the same vision and the same objectives. And in less than 40 years, they were able to govern and to dominate almost a third of the planet. And so we can do that, brethren. We can govern the world again. We don't have to settle for this. You know, we don't have to settle for just the Zoom calls are great, but we can rebuild our own world again.
Brother Cosrael, I hear what you're saying. Here's my objection to some of the points that you've made. We have done and we have tried that which you have just suggested. We have built our own facilities, whether it be medical or whether it be educational or financial, and they have been destroyed. This is in the many nations in which we have dwelt or have been scattered. So we've done that. So we have been trying for many centuries to do things on our own, and it has been destroyed, or we have failed to have any cohesiveness. And if we did have any cohesiveness, it was torn down. So it comes back to the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. You are saying that we can govern again. Sure, we can govern again. But that governance and that government will be the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, precepts. So for us to be leaders again, for us to be cohesive in thought and action by which we can progress, it will only be done under the umbrella of the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, precepts. For we have done all that you have suggested before, and it was torn down, it was plucked up, and it was destroyed. For it was not done under the umbrella of the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. So many of our people will suggest going to Africa to restart, to rebuild. Well, we were in Africa, we were taken from there. The African nations are decimated, have all types of internal conflicts, problems, corruptions, etc., etc. So does the European nations. But we're discussing Africa because many of our people are considering Africa to be the place to rebuild and to restart, etc., etc. The same problems that Africa has, we have in the diaspora. We have done all of these things before, it has failed. So therefore, it's either A, we're going to go with trying to do things our own way, which we have been doing for centuries, and that has failed, or we take adherence to the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, and we come to the understanding that these words are indeed true, and there's no way that we're going to have any kind of cohesiveness. There's no way that we're going to prosper in the midst of our enemies or anywhere else unless we return onto this law, statute, judgments, and precepts. For that is our only protection, because we're out here in the wilderness. There is no protection. There's no one coming to our aid. We can't call on the African nation when these Europeans are busting us in the head, these nations. There is no help for us nowhere. whether it be economically or militarily or politically for that matter. They won't even speak out on it. So therefore, all of what you're saying sounds good in one hand, but it's something that we've already tried, and it has failed us left and right in all the lands of our captivity.
But my brother, I'm a Hebrew. I'm a Hebrew Israelite. I couldn't say or see it being done any other way but what you just said. I agree 100%. And that's the spirit and the energy that we've been moving on for the last 50 years. When I left America at 17 years old, everything that I did was with a heart to serve the Most High correctly. Now, I'm not saying we got everything correct. I'm not saying we know, everything, that's to come. But what you just said has been at the very heart and the very anchoring of our movement, that this is being inspired by the laws and statutes of the Most High. So I agree 100%. If there's going to be anything, that's going to come to pass based on the things I said, it will be definitely and absolutely in the character and spirit of what you just expressed. That's true.
And that's good to hear, because when you said it, that was not put in the forefront. That's why I brought it to you in such a fashion, because many of our people are trying to seek some type of economical parachute that we're just not going to find, trying to find ways to collaborate together. And all of these things that we have tried, walls of untempered mortar, they always fall apart. And we seem to have no understanding as to why these things take place and why they have been happening. And so, and no one is actually standing up and speaking to our people in clear and concise terms. It's always some type of political maneuvering or some type of long-winded explanation that it's self-serving. So my goal, especially when I'm teaching at my channel and addressing my people, is to ensure that you know clearly the only umbrella under which we will come together cohesively, to where we can progress, to where we can be protected, is under the Most High's law, statute, judgments, and precepts. And because we have failed in walking in this thing, is why we have these great separations, these great divides, and these struggles, i.e. curses, in the midst of our people. And that is why we have no strength against our enemies. So it's very clear to me that our people are confused, they're baffled, they're saddened as to why their circumstances are what they are. And no one, well, I won't say no one, many of our men are not speaking up and making it clear. They're trying to give them some other out. Well, you have to vote. Or well, it's your political affiliation. Or well, it's your finances. Or well, it's your education. They're giving them a bunch of extra stuff. And these things also aren't working, and they're not putting the Most High first as to letting our people know exactly why these things have befallen them. So that's a point that I wanted to make clear as it pertains to that.
Thank you.
Yep, I agree. If we're going to be successful in anything we do, we have to remember to keep Yah first. We have to look. You spoke, Dr. Cosrael, you spoke about Moses, Moshe. If we read that book in Deuteronomy, especially, we will find it's important, it's imperative, it's incumbent upon us as Israelites to promote Yah of hosts and his way. I like what you said when you gave an explanation of Yah's name, what he revealed. I know in the English, because I've never been that good with the Hebrew language, but it is I am that I am, and in Hebrew, what is it? Ayer, Asher, Ayer, something. That is, okay. And that is an all-encompassing statement, okay? Spiritual and physical. It's manifested in both, okay? It's all encompassing. If we don't operate you know, in keeping Yah's laws. We were given a charge as a nation. We're the only nation Yah has dealt with. He told us that. There's no other nation on earth that Yah has spoken to directly and commissioned them with a responsibility. It was us, and we failed in that responsibility. If we're going to get back on our feet, we have to accept our responsibility and do it. Okay, once we do it, then we can move in other directions. But it has to be a direction built upon the foundation of Yah of hosts. That cannot be stressed enough. So anyone, if you're looking at this venue on YouTube, if you come across this video, if you're an Israelite or if you're anybody, but especially if you're an Israelite, remember what our plight is. We're in this situation of being oppressed and overrun by our enemies because we were disobedient to Yah. We abandoned our responsibility. So we have to take up the mantle, accept our responsibility, acknowledge that we were wrong, and get back to doing these laws. You have to do it. You will not be successful any other way. I just want to emphasize that. And I'll yield my time to any brother wants to say anything.
Right. Well, I'll just say one thing very quickly. Amazing speech there. Respect. That brings me on to my point of I really feel we've got to get on here and guide our brothers and sisters in the right direction. There are many false prophets out there now, many of these camps who are talking about the Most High and leading our people away from the Most High. Now, it's happened to me already, okay? And I have information on that, and I want to give the information next time around. I don't want to make it be a point in this particular talk, but the next talk we have, I think that Heny puts together, hopefully the good doctor will come on it, and we all come on this talk, and Dave will be on it as well. And we'll speak about some of these people in question who are leading or misleading our people. And I think we got to get to grips with that. So ones who are watching this will know certain people who are in certain camps who are misleading our people. Now, I've got even information right here on my phone right now, which I was going to share today, but I am going to leave it for this one. But I think we should get on a call next time round. Heny organized one, and we'll speak about these people misleading our people, because what we're trying to do here, okay, is going to be interfered with by certain people or certain so-called prophets who are going to be misleading the people. So if I personally can name a couple of those people, and we shouldn't have any fear in exposing these people who are misleading our people. We should have any fear in that at all. So I think the next talk we have, maybe we can speak about that a bit more. And so Brother Lee and Kwame, Benayi, I think we all should be on that talk, and we should speak clearly about some of these people, and make sure that our people now, our Israelite people right now, because it's so important, are not misled by the word and people using the Most High's word and taking them away from what we should be doing. So I hope Heny can organize that one soon.
Okay, it's we 5 more minutes and we call it an end. Any last words?
Well, I've got about 10 calls actually to sort out, and I'm very hungry. But I really appreciate all you coming on the call today. I really loved it. Good to see you again, Kwame, man. It's good to see you guys. And
it's good
again,
to see you, brother.
Nice one. So Heny, just sort out maybe next week or the week after, sort out a date, and and we'll get it done. And I think we should really speak. I want people like Lee and Dave talking to the masses who are watching this. Use their knowledge and education to keep our people, I mean, obviously all of us as well together as a collective, but to keep our people on the right track, especially now, and not mislead them or not allow them to be misled.
Or fleece them for their monies, because many of our men are doing both. They're misleading them and fleecing our peoples for their monies.
Yes.
Okay. I'm right here now, and I'm living proof of that exact thing. So I'm in the process now of trying to get some money back from my or our people, or I wouldn't say my people or our people, from some people in Israel right now. And I was hoping the doctor there would, I don't know, shed some light on if he knows certain people in the land who could well be doing that as we speak, you know. So the next talk we have,
Say that again. Say it again.
Maybe you will know some of the people who are actually doing these things, not you yourself, obviously, in Demona, but people in the land who are doing this kind of thing, fleecing brothers and misleading brothers and letting them think that, you know, what they're saying is correct, when really they're just fleecing people for their money, you know?
Yeah,
The next,
I know some guys I know some guys that's been accused of that. I don't, yeah, you're right. We don't really associate with them, but I've heard of that. You know, yeah, and we keep our eyes open for things like that because,
well, I'm going to give the person in question or the people in question a chance to redeem themselves,
okay,
by reimbursing myself and other people. If they don't do so in the next week or couple of weeks, I will expose them to the world, you know, and the world will know who they are, you know.
See, that goes back to what my brother was saying. How are we going to start any kind of productive movement without, you know, when he says it has to be in accordance with the laws of the Most High.
100%.
It has to be truth centered. It has to be correct. That's all you're saying.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Okay.
So really and truly, the next
I will help.
Okay, we will.
And I help you. I help you identify.
Oh, cool.
You know, I help you. If you need some eyes and ears on the ground here, I'll help you.
Oh, that's very, very helpful indeed. Are you on Facebook at all?
Yeah.
Are you on Facebook?
Certainly. I don't use it much, but I'm on there.
Doctor? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be friends on Facebook, but we'll talk privately because you need to know about this. I won't air it here yet.
Sure. I understand.
So I'm give them a chance to redeem themselves, but I will in the next talk if things don't change. And you can.
Okay, you see my name on my video screen? That's my Facebook.
Well, Henry knows it, don't you, Henry? You know.
Facebook. I send it to you.
Send it to me, Henry. That's great. That's great. Brothers, we can tie this one up though, yeah? It's been great.
Yeah, I have to go. I have to get going now.
Peace and Yah bless everybody. It's been great. May Yah be with all of you. And remember, we're going to keep those laws. We're going to get stronger. That's our way.
Yeah, let's close it out with a prayer. Anyone want to say a prayer for us?
Go ahead, Brother Benai, lead it.
Me? Okay. You know. Well, okay, all right. I'm not. I don't do it in Hebrew, the Hebrew language, but you know, all praises to Yah of hosts. May Yah guide us and lead us to the keeping of His laws and guide us into the truth. May all of our people come into the knowledge of Yah Most High. May He bless and keep us in a spirit of truth and righteousness. This is our prayer, and so be it. Thank you.
So be it.
All right, brother. Love you all dearly. Till the next time.
Yeah, peace and Yah bless, brothers.
Peace and Yah bless, everybody.
Been a great chat. Been a great chat. Peace and Yah bless.
Absolutely.
I've got to do something. Henry.
Yeah.
Henry, you know, give me a call afterwards, okay?
I'll give you a call now.
Okay, take care.